Good morning students. In our previous classes we have started with this chapter Human Health and Disease under the unit Biology in Human Welfare. Under this chapter we have studied what is health, how to maintain good health. We have studied what is disease. We have studied classification of diseases into infectious and non-infectious one. We have studied the difference between these two. Then we started with the bacterial disease, where we studied about the disease typhoid, okay, and we know that typhoid is caused by this pathogen known as Salmonella typhi. Then we studied about this disease known as pneumonia, where pneumonia is caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. We have studied the symptoms of the diseases of this disease. Then we have under virus disease, we have studied about common cold and how rhinovirus is responsible for causing common cold. Then we have studied about protozoan diseases. Under protozoan disease, we have studied about two diseases. One is malaria, another one is amoebic dysentery or amoebiosis. We know the pathogen of malaria is Plasmodium, where different species of Plasmodium known as Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium malariae, all these organisms are responsible for causing different types of malaria. We have studied about the life cycle of Plasmodium. Okay, this diagram we have studied in detail. Then we studied about amoebic dysentery. Okay, under amoebic dysentery we know which is the pathogen causing amoebic dysentery. It's nothing but Entamoeba histolytica, which is a protozoan which causes this disease known as amoebic dysentery. We have studied the symptoms, vector, everything. Then under fungal disease we have studied ringworm. Okay, how this Trichophyton, Epidermophyton and Microsporum are responsible for causing ringworm. We have studied the symptoms and source of the disease. In today's class we will study about helminthic diseases. Okay, how helminthus causes different types of diseases. Under helminthic disease, the first disease we will be studying is Ascariasis. Ascariasis is a type of disease caused by this pathogen Ascaris lumbricoides. Okay, under helminthic disease we will be studying this disease called as Ascariasis. The pathogen or the organism that causes this disease is known as Ascaris lumbricoides. Okay, just like your typhoid and your amoebic dysentery, Ascaris lumbricoides also is an intestinal parasite. Okay, Ascaris lumbricoides is generally known as intestinal roundworm. Okay, Ascaris, you all know, they represent roundworms. Okay, if the roundworm, these roundworms will be usually present in our intestine. Okay, it is referred as intestinal roundworm. This is a very familiar, worm to all of us. So they will be present in our intestine as a parasite. Now, what are the symptoms of this disease known as Ascariasis? Okay, what are the symptoms of Ascariasis? Internal bleeding. Okay, that is bleeding in your intestine. Muscular pain. Since this is the intestinal parasite, okay, which causes internal bleeding, you will be having pain in your muscles. Fever. Fever is another symptom of Ascariasis. Anemia, that is lack of hemoglobin, that's what we refer to, anemia. And blockage of the intestinal passage. Since intestine is occupied by this intestinal parasite Ascaris lumbricoides, the intestinal passage will be blocked. That means your food which is being digested or the waste cannot pass through the intestinal properly through this blockage, because Ascaris lumbricoides are bigger in size. They occupy the intestine. Now, how this Ascariasis is spread? Now, imagine this Ascaris lumbricoides is a roundworm present in the intestine of a person having this Ascariasis disease. Now, what Ascaris lumbricoides will do is, they will lay eggs in the intestine itself, okay, of the person having this disease. Ascaris lumbricoides will lay eggs. Okay, here you can see the eggs of the parasites. Now when they lay eggs, these eggs are excreted out of this person's body along with the feces. Okay, when the person who is having Ascariasis disease passes stool, okay, when he carries out defecation, the eggs of this Ascaris lumbricoids, which is there in the intestine, they are also excreted along with the feces or the stool of the infected person. Okay, when these eggs reaches the soil or water, they contaminate soil, water as well as plants. Okay, if the water is running to the plant, then these plant, soil, water, all these will be contaminated by the eggs of the parasite. Now, by any chance, if a healthy person drinks this water, eats the vegetable and fruits grown in this particular soil or taken from these plants, then the healthy person will develop the infection. He will acquire this infection through contaminated water, vegetable and fruits. Okay, so under helminthic disease, the first disease we will be studying is Ascariasis. It is caused by an intestinal parasite known as Ascaris lumbricoids. Okay, now generally they will be present in our intestine as roundworm. It is quite bigger in size. When they are present in our intestine, then we develop the disease known as Ascariasis. The symptoms of the disease are these. Okay, now when the parasite is present in the intestine, when they lay eggs, the egg will come out of the person's body along with the feces or the stool that is excreted by this person. Okay, if these eggs mixes with the soil, water, then what happens? And if we tend to drink this water and if or eat the vegetables or fruits grown on these plants, growing in this particular soil, then the healthy person also will acquire the infection. This is all about Ascariasis. This is the first type of helminthic disease. Next we will look into the next helminthic disease, which is filariasis or elephantiasis. Okay, this is the second helminthic disease is known as filariasis or elephantiasis. Okay, a person's leg looks similar to the leg of an elephant. Okay, you might have seen pictures of this particular disease where a person's leg, a normal human being's leg appears similar to those of that of an elephant's leg. Now the pathogen which causes this filariasis is known as Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi. Okay, they are the two helminthes which causes this disease known as filariasis. Here you can see the pathogen causing this filariasis disease. It's Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi. They are the filarial worms. Now what are the symptoms of this disease known as filariasis? Slowly developing chronic inflammation of the organs in which the pathogen live for many years. Okay, now imagine this pathogen known as Wucheria bancrofti or Wucheria malayi has entered a person's body. Whichever organ it is going to live, generally it chooses the limbs to live. Okay, these organisms, they prefer limbs to live. In whichever organs it is going to live, it causes the inflammation of that particular organ. Okay, inflammation is nothing but a kind of swelling of the area, redness, appearance of pain in particular area. Okay, all these symptoms are the speciality of inflammation. Okay, what they do is in whichever organs of the body they are living, they will cause the inflammation, which actually leads into the swelling of that particular organ. Now, why the organs swell and why a normal person's leg appears like the leg of an elephant? That is because blocking of lymph vessels of the lower limbs resulting in swelling. Okay, here you can see blocking of lymph vessels. Last year we have studied what are lymph vessels. Lymph vessels are vessels which carries lymph. Okay, similar to your blood vessels which carries blood. We in our body we also have lymph vessels which actually carries lymph. Lymph is nothing but a fluid containing majority of lymphocytes in it. They are very important for developing immune system in our body. Okay, so these vessels which carries lymph. Okay, lymph is a fluid which is enriched with lymphocytes. Okay, they are very important for immune system of our body. So the vessels in which this lymph is being carried, they are blocked due to these organisms Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi. Okay, since the lymph vessels are blocked, what happens is the lymph vessels starts swelling. Okay, so as a result of this, the lower limbs of the person starts swelling. Okay, there is a blockage in the lymph vessels. When there is blockage in lymph vessels cannot carry lymph easily. So there is swelling in the lymph vessels itself. So that is the reason the person who is affected from this filariasis, his lower limbs, okay, his lower limbs, that means their legs, starts swelling. Lower limbs appear like legs of an elephant. Okay, the lower limbs or the leg of this person appears like legs of an elephant. Okay, along with the lower limbs, the genital organs of that person are also affected. That also shows swelling, resulting in gross deformities. Okay, there will be many deformation in the person's body where his the organs of the body where this Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi are present, they start developing chronic inflammation. Inflammation means itchiness, redness, swelling, too much of pain. Okay, all these together can be called as inflammation. So the person's body organs will be inflamed and the lymph vessels will be blocked. Okay, the vessels which carry lymph will be blocked. As a result of this, person's lower limbs, his legs, starts swelling. Lower limbs appear like legs of an elephant. The genital organs of this particular person are also affected, resulting in many deformation in the body. Now, who is the vector for this pathogen, Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi? Female Culex mosquito are the actual carriers or vectors for this particular disease. The vectors are female Culex mosquito, just like malaria where female Anopheles mosquito was the vector in case of carrying plasmodium. Here female Culex mosquito is the vector which carries Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi to the host. Hosts are nothing but human beings. Okay, so with this we will we can conclude different diseases caused by different pathogens. Okay, initially we started with bacterial disease. Under bacterial disease we studied typhoid, which is caused by Salmonella typhi. We also studied pneumonia caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. Then we moved on to viral disease where we studied common cold. The pathogen causing common cold is rhinovirus. Then we moved on to protozoan disease. Under protozoan disease we studied about malaria. Malaria is caused by a pathogen known as plasmodium. Okay. Plasmodium, we have different types like Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium malariae. Then we studied about the next type of protozoan disease, which is your amoebic dysentery or amoebiosis caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Then we moved on to fungal disease. There we studied about ringworm caused by Microsporum trichophyton and Epidermophyton. And lastly we studied about two helminthic diseases. First one is Ascariasis caused by Ascaris lumbricoides. Then we studied about filariasis caused by Wucheria bancrofti and Wucheria malayi. So these were the different diseases caused by different pathogens. Then the next topic we will move on to prevention and control of many infectious diseases. How to prevent and how to control. There is a difference between prevention and control. Prevention is nothing but taking some action before the infection, before getting disease. Control is, if we have, control is nothing but, these are also the actions that could be taken before we get any kind of disease, or after the disease, if a person is administered with some kind of disease, what are the actions we can take in order to control the infectious diseases. Now, if we look into different steps coming under this prevention and control of many infectious disease, the first one here you can see we have already discussed about it in the beginning of the class. Maintenance of personal hygiene include keeping the body clean, consumption of clean drinking water, food, vegetables, fruits, etc. First is we have to maintain personal hygiene. If we maintain personal hygiene, we can avoid most of the infectious diseases. Okay, while talking about infectious disease, I told you that public health and personal hygiene can definitely prevent infectious diseases from spreading. So you have to keep your body clean. Okay, how to keep the keeping the body clean? Washing our hands regularly as soon as we come out of inside the house from outside. We need to wash our hands, wash our legs. Taking bath regularly is very important in terms of maintaining personal hygiene. That means keeping the body clean. Consumption of clean drinking water, eating clean food, vegetables, fruits, etc. are also very important towards controlling many infectious diseases. Public hygiene includes proper disposal of waste and excreta. Okay, any waste should be disposed in a proper way. Periodic cleaning and disinfection of water reservoirs and pools. Okay, the water reservoirs that you see in the public places, also different pools, everything should be cleaned properly. Cesspools and tanks. Cesspools are the small underground tanks which will be constructed in our houses in order to store the liquid waste or sewage that we call. Okay, and different tanks, we have to clean it regularly. Ultimately, it says that wherever water is being stored, we need to clean those reservoirs regularly so that we can avoid different infectious diseases. Control or eliminate the vectors and their breeding places. For example, if there is water getting collected surrounding to your house, there is a chance or there is a risk that more and more mosquitoes will come and breed in those places. Okay, that is the reason we have to avoid these breeding places so that we can eliminate the vectors. When there is no breeding place, the mosquitoes cannot breed, they cannot act as vectors, so we can completely eliminate the vectors. This can be achieved by avoiding stagnation of water. I have already mentioned, when there is stagnant water surrounding to your house, it means it is a breeding place for different vectors. Okay, so if there is no stagnant water surrounding to your house, then there is no breeding places for different insects. Okay, water in and around residential areas. Regular cleaning of household coolers. Okay, we use coolers in our house, like or in public places like schools, colleges. So if the coolers should be regularly cleaned. It's not that we will use the same cooler for one complete academic year. Okay, it should be always cleaned. Use of mosquito nets. Introducing fishes like Gambusia in ponds that feed on mosquito larvae. There is a fish called as Gambusia. If you introduce this fish in ponds, what they will do is, they will start eating the mosquito larvae. Okay, imagine there is a pond, too much of, the mosquito has made that pond as a breeding place. Okay, they are laying eggs in the particular pond. So what you do is, if you are not able to control it, you introduce fish like Gambusia. Okay, what this fish does is, what they will do is, they will start eating the mosquito larvae. So the number of mosquitoes will reduce. Spraying of insecticides in ditches, drainage areas and swamps. Okay, we have to regularly spray some insecticides in the ditches, okay, or the drainage that runs in front of our house, and swamps, okay, which will be present surrounding to our residential areas. Now, the next step towards prevention and control of many infectious disease is that vaccination and immunization program for disease like polio, diphtheria, tetanus, etc. Okay, so we should be aware of this vaccination and immunization program, when to give proper vaccination, and what are the different types of vaccination available in the market, and what is the best time to give it. So we can take vaccination and immunization for diseases like polio, diphtheria, tetanus, etc. Then use of antibodies and drugs to treat the infected person. If the person is already infected, I told you here control is something we can do after a person got infection. So we can use antibodies and drugs to treat the infected person. So the proper understanding of these steps will help a person to prevent and control different infectious diseases. Okay, this is just the general information about how to control the infectious diseases. Now next topic we will move on to will be immunity. Okay, what is immunity? Here I have given the explanation of immunity. You might be having different explanation for immunity, that is perfectly fine. Okay, but the standard explanation for immunity is the overall ability of the host to fight the disease causing organisms conferred by the immune system is called immunity. Okay, the overall ability of the host to fight against disease causing organisms conferred by the immune system is called as immunity. If you look into it word by word, the overall ability of the host, imagine I am a host, I am a person, to fight the disease causing organisms. If I am a normal healthy person, if any disease causing organism is entering my body is not going to receive it happily. Okay, I am a healthy person. If any disease causing organism is going to enter my body will never welcome that disease causing organism. My body will try to fight against this organism. Okay, my body will try to fight against this disease causing organism. Such ability of my body is known as immunity. Okay, so immunity is the ability of the host, ability of every one of us to fight the disease causing organism. Okay, if any disease causing organism is entering our body, we are definitely going to fight against these organisms. Our body is going to, even though you don't fight physically, your body is going to fight against this disease causing organism, because you have a inbuilt capacity in your body to not to accept any foreign bodies. Okay, such ability is known as immunity. It is conferred by the immune system. That means when you do this, when your body is fighting against a disease causing organism, somebody is supporting your body. That support is given by your immune system. Okay, immunity is a feature given by your immune system. We have an inbuilt immune system, so that immune system supports our immunity. Okay, support our body to fight against the disease causing organism. This is known as immunity. Now, immunity is of two types. Here you can see innate immunity and acquired immunity. The difference between innate immunity and acquired immunity is that when we were born, at the time of birth itself, we had some type of immunity. Okay? When we were born, at the time of our birth, we were born with some kind of immunity. That immunity is is known as innate immunity. It is also known as inborn immunity. That means when the time we were born with this immunity known as innate immunity. Now the second type of immunity is acquired immunity. Acquired means gained. Okay, when we were growing, at some point of our life, we gained some immunity or we acquired some immunity. Such type of immunity is known as acquired immunity. Okay, the difference between innate immunity and acquired immunity is that innate immunity is the immunity that we had at the time of birth, whereas acquired immunity is the immunity that we gained or acquired in some point of our life when we were growing. Okay, so let us start with innate immunity. We will study in detail about this innate immunity. Here you can see innate immunity is non-specific type of defense that is present at the time of birth. Okay, non-specific type. Why do we use this term non-specific type? When we were born, our body did not have any idea what type of pathogen it is going to face in the future. When we were born as born as a child or a baby, our body did not have any idea what type of pathogens are going to enter my body in the future. Okay, at such particular time, irrespective, without thinking about any pathogen, our body has developed some kind of immunity. Okay, so that immunity is not specific to any particular pathogen. Our body did not plan that bacteria might attack me in the future, so let me develop an immunity against that particular bacteria. No, that has not happened. Okay, our body developed some immunity which was not specific to any particular pathogen. Our body wanted some immunity, basic immunity, so it developed it. Okay, such type of immunity is known as innate immunity. So that is the reason we use non-specific type. Our body did not know I am going to make this immunity and this is going to be against this bacteria. It did not happen. Okay, I developed the immunity just thinking that my body may require it just in order to protect my body. So it was not specific to any type of organisms. So defense, this is the word we generally use for this immunity. Okay, just like our defense system protects our country, immunity protects our body. Just like defense protects our country, immunity protects our body. So immunity is generally referred as body defense mechanism. Okay, here also you can use the term. Okay, immunity can be referred as body defense mechanism. Okay, defense mechanism developed by the body can be referred as immunity. See, it is present at the time of birth, I have already mentioned. This is accomplished by providing different types of barriers to the entry of the foreign agents into our body. Okay, now I have explained what is innate immunity. Okay, now we have to know what is this, which are the different barriers that is present in our body which gives innate immunity. Okay, our body has developed innate immunity. That means body has developed certain barriers. Barriers, we can say wall. Okay, our body has developed a wall, surrounding to our body or inside our body, so that any external pathogen cannot enter our body and cause some disease. Okay, so such type of barriers are the actual protectors of our body, which comes under innate immunity. So we will study about all these barriers. Okay, here it is written, this is accomplished. That means we get innate immunity in our body because we have different types of barriers, okay, which will protect the entry of foreign agents into our body, which will restrict the entry of foreign agents into our body. We have certain barriers in our body. I will explain about all the barriers. We have certain barriers in our body which will stop the external agents entering into our body. Any agent, if it is trying to enter into our body, it will be stopped or it will be protected. It will be stopped by certain barriers which is in our body. So these barriers are actually giving innate immunity. Which are those barriers? We will study here. So we have, under innate immunity, we have 4 different types of barriers. Okay, under innate immunity, we have 4 different types of barriers. I will explain every barrier in detail. Let's deal with this innate immunity in detail. We know that innate immunity is a non-specific, that means it is not specific to any one particular pathogen, type of defense, that means mechanisms to protect our body. Okay, it is a non-specific type of defense that is present at the time of birth. Okay, this immunity was present at the time of birth itself. It was not specific to any one particular pathogen. It was, it was a general defense mechanism that was developed by the body. So this is known as innate immunity. Now, innate immunity has 4 barriers. It consists of barriers. That means we have innate immunity. We have developed innate immunity in the form of these 4 barriers. Okay, because of the presence of these 4 barriers, we can say that we had innate immunity at the time of birth. So which are these 4 barriers? We will study in detail. So which are the different barriers of innate immunity? First barrier of innate immunity is known as physical barrier. The first type of barrier which gives innate immunity to our body is physical barrier. Which are the physical barrier? Skin and mucous membrane are the 2 physical barriers present in our body. Okay, skin, I don't have to elaborate. Okay, our whole body is surrounded by this protective layer known as skin. Imagine our body without skin. Okay, we cannot imagine our body without skin, because if there was no skin, definitely all the pathogens that is present surrounding to us, or all the pathogens, all the microorganisms present in our surrounding environment would have penetrated into our body and caused multiple disease. Okay, it would have caused multiple diseases in our body. So skin is the outermost layer of our body, which is actually protecting as a physical barrier. Barrier, in a simple term, I have to say, it is like a wall. Okay, if there is a wall, nothing can come close to me. So skin is that barrier which actually protects your whole body. Okay, from it is protecting our body by not allowing the entry of any external pathogen or any external agents into our body. So skin is the most important physical barrier which is present in our body. Why do we call it as a barrier of innate immunity? Because innate immunity means the immunity we had from the time we were born. Okay, so did we have skin from the time we were born? Yes. From the at the time of our birth itself, we had skin surrounding to our body, protecting our whole internal organ. Okay, so skin was present at the time of our birth. So skin is a barrier of innate immunity. Okay, skin is a physical barrier which is responsible for innate immunity. Then comes this mucous membrane. Mucous membrane is also a physical barrier present in our body. You know, our respiratory tract, organs of our respiratory tract like esophagus, bronchi, bronchioles, your nasal passage, and organs of our gastrointestinal tract including mouth, your esophagus, stomach, intestine, and your urinogenital system, urinogenital tract. Okay, urinogenital tract is the organs that comes under your urinary system, and your reproductive system. Ovary in female, testes in male, and if you talk about urinary system, your kidney, okay, the urinary bladder, the urethra, all these organs which belongs to respiratory tract, GI tract and urinogenital tract of our body. It has the innermost layer. Okay, if you look into the structure, we have studied in detail in the first year classes. If you look into these organs, the innermost layer has a mucous membrane. The innermost layer of all these organs of GI tract, of respiratory tract or urinogenital tract has this membrane known as mucous membrane. Mucous membrane also gives immunity to our body, and mucous membrane was present at the time of our birth. So it is a barrier of innate immunity. Okay, so it was present, it is the immunity that we had from the time of our birth. So they are also called as barriers of innate immunity. Since skin and mucous membrane both acts as a physical structure that actually protects our body, they come under physical barriers. Okay, so if we talk about innate immunity, it is the immunity that is present from the time of our birth. How did we get this immunity? You know, what is the reason for having this immunity? Because we had 4 barriers in our body giving us innate immunity. If we talk about those barriers, the first barrier is physical barrier. Our skin and mucous membrane are the 2 physical barriers present in our body, and they were present in our body from the time we were born. The second type of barriers is physiological barrier. Okay, the second type of barrier is physiological barrier. If I give some example, you will be able to understand it better. These are the examples of physiological barriers. Acid in our stomach. You know, our stomach has acidic condition. It has acidic pH because of the presence of hydrochloric acid in our stomach. Along with helping in digestion, this acid present in the stomach also carries out some immunity, defense mechanism. That means it also kills any unwanted pathogen entering into our body along with the GI tract. Tears in our eyes. If any pathogen, external pathogen is trying to enter our body through eyes, what happens is immediately our eyes start shedding tears. So along with the tears, the pathogen also is removed from the eyes. Okay, the next type of physiological barrier that we have in our body is saliva in our mouth. Okay, the saliva present in our mouth has the capacity to kill multiple microorganisms that might be entering our body through food. Okay, so it kills most of the variety of microorganisms are killed by this saliva. Okay, because saliva carries a lot of digestive enzymes. It also digests or kills certain pathogens trying to enter our body through food. Okay, so these are the different examples for physiological barrier, and all these barriers were present in our body from the time of our birth. Okay, so they becomes the barriers of innate immunity. Okay, they gives us innate immunity, the immunity from the time of our birth. The next type of barriers is cellular barrier. The name itself indicates when a cell of our body acts as a barrier, it is known as cellular barrier. Can you think of any cell present in our body that gives immunity to our body, which is present from the time we were born and it is present till today, and it is fighting against external pathogen. It is fighting against any pathogen. If you can think of a cellular barrier, it would be really nice. Now I will explain which are the different cellular barriers we have in our body. As I already told you, when a cell of our body acts as a barrier against pathogen, it is known as cellular barrier. So which are they? In your first year classes you have studied what is WBC. WBC are nothing but white blood cells or white blood corpuscles. They are the major component, one of the major components of our blood. WBC are of different types, if you know. We have, actually they are classified as neutrophil, eosinophil, WBC is generally classified as granulocytes and agranulocytes. Under granulocytes you have neutrophil, eosinophil and basophil. Under agranulocytes you have monocytes and lymphocytes. You have studied these in your first year class, so that is the reason I am directly moving towards the actual types of WBCs. Neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, monocytes, and the last one, lymphocytes. So under cellular barrier we will be studying about WBC, white blood cells. Okay, white blood cells. So this WBC, white is important in our body. You know the function of RBC is carrying hemoglobin, so it carries oxygen. What is the function of WBC? RBC actually carries carbon dioxide and oxygen both. The function of WBC is to give immunity to our body, is to protect our body. Okay, white blood cells. So there are certain types of cells which gives immunity to our body. Since they are some kind of cells giving immunity, they come under cellular barrier. Some cells in our body acting as barriers. Okay, so they come under cellular barriers. Here if we talk about WBC, WBCs are generally represented as leukocytes. Just like RBC is represented as erythrocytes, WBCs are known as leukocytes. There are 5 types of WBCs: neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, monocytes and lymphocytes. Here out of this neutrophil, all the cells, all these different WBCs, they have their own contribution towards giving immunity to our body. Okay, they have their own contribution in giving immunity to our body. Generally, all these WBCs are majorly constructed in our body to give immunity to our body. Okay, since they are cells, they are coming under cellular barriers. Okay, neutrophil is also known as PMNL, morphonuclear leukocytes. Okay, polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Poly, different. Morphology. Leukocytes, WBCs. Nuclear, the nucleus. Okay, since the nucleus of this particular WBC called as neutrophil has different morphology, it is known as PMNL or polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Okay, there is no rocket science here. Why do we call neutrophil as polymorphonuclear leukocytes? Because their nucleus, the morphology of the nucleus changes, okay, or differs. When we consider multiple neutrophil, the morphology of their nucleus varies, okay, or it is of different types. That is the reason we call them as polymorphonuclear leukocytes. They are very important cells when talking about giving immunity to our body because they are phagocytic in nature. They are phagocytic in nature. That means when any pathogen is entering our body, it goes and destroys that particular pathogen by eating it, okay, by completely consuming it and digesting it. That is the reason they are very important as phagocytic in nature. That means it directly goes and eats of the pathogen whichever is entering into our body. Eosinophil also plays this major role, it also gives little contribution towards immunity. Basophil also gives contribution towards immunity. Monocytes are also very important because monocytes, sometimes what happens is, they are actually the largest WBCs. Okay. Now when they grow into structure known as macrophages. Okay. When they grow into structure called as macrophages. Macro, big, phages means eating. Okay. So now what happens is when they are converted into macrophages, imagine this is a macrophage. WBC, you all know it, they are nucleated unlike your platelets and RBCs. Imagine any bacteria is trying to enter your body, these macrophages go there, they eat of this bacteria and they completely digest it or neutralize it. Okay, that is the function of macrophages. So our body does not leave any or every microorganism or pathogen to enter our body and cause disease. It definitely fights back, at the fullest. Okay, as far their the pathogens are concerned, our body is not going to allow the pathogens to survive and cause disease in our body. They are definitely fighting till the end. Okay, only when immunity is weak or the incoming pathogen is highly powerful, then our body's immunity surrenders. Okay, we cannot say surrendered, it still fights back till the end. Okay, so monocytes develop into macrophages which ultimately acts, they are also phagocytic in nature because they are also eating or consuming the microorganisms and neutralizes it. Lymphocytes, when we talk about lymphocytes, there are different types of lymphocytes. Here we can talk, lymphocytes are of three types generally. Okay, we will study about these lymphocytes. B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes and we say K lymphocytes. K lymphocytes are referred as natural killer cells because they actually kill the incoming pathogen. Okay, the pathogen when they enter our body, they are killed by these K lymphocytes. Okay, the B lymphocytes, what they do is they produce antibodies. Okay, whenever a foreign body is entering our body, the lymphocytes, which is a type of WBC, gets to know, okay, they sense it, and what they do is they immediately ask the B lymphocytes. Special type of lymphocytes are B lymphocytes. They ask the B lymphocytes to produce antibodies. Antibodies will go and fight against that particular pathogen, which is referred as antigen. Okay, there is, the antibodies will kill the pathogen which is trying to enter our body. T lymphocytes, what they do is they support this B lymphocyte in producing the antibodies. Natural killer cells, they directly go and kill the pathogens which is trying to enter our body. Okay, so this is the function of the cellular barriers. Cellular barriers, when we say, they are nothing but WBCs. But while talking about WBCs, we have to mention about the different types of WBCs. Okay, now neutrophil, monocytes and lymphocytes are the very important types of WBCs, whereas eosinophil and basophil also contribute towards immunity. However, in your syllabus, this much information has been provided. So I hope this is clear to you. Last type of, we will move on to the last type of barriers, which are cytokine barriers. Okay, the last type of barrier is known as cytokine barrier. Okay, so some chemicals produced by your cell, okay, some chemicals produced by your cell, if they act as a barrier, it can be referred as cytokine barrier. Now imagine your body's cell, one cell has been attacked by a virus. Okay, in your body's one cell has been attacked by a virus. What happens is, cell is never alone because we are all multicellular. We are multicellular and we have multiple cells arranged together to form a tissue. Imagine any one cell has been attacked by virus. The immediate reaction of the cell is, the cell release some type of chemical. This is known as interferons. These interferons goes and it communicates to the neighboring cell. Okay, it informs the neighboring cell that a virus is attacking and you should be virus ready. That means you should be ready to attack this virus. Okay, this cell was not ready to accept the virus. Before the cell could sense, the virus has already entered the cell. However, this cell doesn't want neighboring cells also to get attacked by the virus. That is the reason it produces a chemical known as interferons. This interferon will go and inform the neighboring cell, okay, that virus has entered our body and you all should be ready to attack that virus. So by the time this virus enters the next cell, this cell is already ready to attack this virus. Okay, the cell is already ready with its immune system to attack this virus, so that the virus effect on the neighboring cell is very less when compared to this initial cell. So these cells are ready to kill the virus, and as soon as the virus enters those cells, they will kill the virus, because already they were ready with their all the defense mechanism. So such type of barrier is known as cytokine barrier. Even this barrier was present in our body at the time of our birth. Okay, so they can be called as barrier of innate immunity. Okay, very important question. First you should know what is innate immunity. It is a non-specific type of defense which is present at the time of our birth, and we get this innate immunity. There are two, in order to get the innate immunity, we have 4 barriers in our body. First is physical, next is physiological, then cellular, then cytokine barriers. Now you know in detail the properties of these barriers and what are the examples that comes under these different barriers. Okay, after this innate immunity, we will move on to the next topic, which is known as acquired immunity. Okay, so we will study about the next type of immunity, which is known as acquired immunity. The name itself indicates it is somehow gained or acquired in our life. Okay, so this is the type of immunity Okay, if you look into the explanation, the immunity which is not present at the time of birth but acquired during the lifespan of an individual. Okay, when we were born, we did not have this immunity, we had only innate immunity. Okay, in innate immunity we had physical barriers like skin and mucous membrane, physiological barriers like saliva, acid, tears. Then we had cytokine barriers where we had the chemicals like interferons. We had cellular barriers where we had WBCs. Okay, all those barriers were present at the time of birth. However, this acquired immunity was not present at the time of birth, but we acquired it during our lifespan. Okay, from the time at the time we were born, we did not have this immunity. However, as we started growing, we started developing this immunity known as acquired immunity. Acquired immunity can be referred as specific type of immunity. That means it is specific to one particular pathogen. Okay, in our lifespan, when we were growing, if we have been attacked by any particular bacteria or virus, what happens is suddenly our immunity system gets boosted and it tries to put that particular bacteria or virus out of our body. At particular time of encounter from that bacteria or virus, we develop a immunity. So such immunity is known as acquired immunity. It is specific to one particular type of bacteria or virus. Okay, or it is specific to a particular pathogen. Only when we encounter an attack from that particular pathogen, we develop this immunity. That is the reason we call it as specific type of immunity. Also, we say it is this immunity is characterized by memory. Okay, it is characterized by memory. What is memory? If we see any particular person or any particular object, okay, and even though if we don't see the same object for a very long time, or maybe for few years, after few years, if you see the same object, you are able to recall or remember what that object and who that person is. That is known as our memory. Okay, whereas memory of our immune system is that if a particular bacteria is attacking our body, okay, our body suddenly develops an immunity. So that immunity is acquired immunity, instant immunity. A bacteria is entering our body gets to know that there is some external object entering into our body. Immediately our immune system, what it does is, it becomes active, it tries to put that bacteria out of the body. Okay, so we suddenly develop an immunity against that particular bacteria. If the same bacteria attacks us after 2 years or after 10 years, our body's immune system encounters an attack from a bacteria, our body's immune system gets activated, it tries to put that bacteria out. If the same bacteria is attacking our body, after 1 or 2 years or after 10 years, our body still, is able to recall or remember that particular bacteria, okay, and it will react in the same way how it reacted in the, for the first time.